your daughter's birthday? We're not showing up. We've got brunch plans with important friends, Dad texted. She was turning 6. First birthday after her mom died. I'd planned for weeks. She asked every day, "Is Grandpa coming?" I said yes. During her party, they posted brunch photos. I sent them her disappointed face, framed. Last time you break her heart. When they appeared unannounced for Christmas, you know that gut-wrenching feeling when someone you love lets you down so brutally, you almost can't breathe? When they show you exactly who they are, and it shatters everything you thought you knew about family. This is the story of how I finally drew a line in the sand, but not before my parents broke my 6-year-old daughter's heart on her birthday, then had the audacity to show up for Christmas expecting a red carpet welcome. It was Leia's 6th birthday, her very first without her mom, Megan. I'd been planning it for weeks, trying to stitch joy back into our lives. Every single day, Leia would look up at me with those wide, hopeful eyes and ask, "Is Grandpa coming?" And every single day, I'd promise her, "Yes, sweetie, they'll be here." Because what else could I say? The alternative felt unconscionable. I was in the kitchen, carefully frosting a rainbow unicorn cake, the one Leia insisted on because unicorns don't leave, when my phone buzzed. My hands were already covered in flowers, frosting up to my forearms, and 6 pink candles, like tiny brave flags, were already lit on the cake. I almost ignored it, but the message preview popped up anyway. "Dad, your daughter's birthday? We're not coming. We have brunch plans with important friends." That word, important, was in all caps. As if my little girl's first birthday without her mother was just some minor scheduling conflict they could blow off for mimosas. I stared at the screen until my throat tightened, my chest feeling heavy. My hand started to shake so hard that the cake knife tapped a nervous rhythm on the ceramic plate. From the living room, I could hear Leia, her voice soft and sweet, rehearsing her "thank you for coming" speech to her stuffed bunny. She'd practiced it in the mirror, desperate to get it just right. "Daddy," she called, her voice a little whisper. "Can we put a plate out for Grandpa, just in case?" It was like a punch to the gut. I swallowed hard, forcing the words out. "Yeah, baby," I managed. "We'll put one out for him." And then, just as my amazing friend Nora rang the doorbell, arms laden with balloons and party hats, there it was. My parents on Facebook. Mimosas clinking, wide smiles, a glistening plate of eggs Benedict. My mom's caption, "Brunch with the best people. Feeling blessed." I stood there, phone still in hand, frosting drying on my skin, my daughter's innocent questions echoing in my ears. I should have known. Grief, man, it makes you stupid in a very specific way. It makes you keep trying with people who have shown you, time and time again, exactly who they are. My name's Kevin. I was 38 then, a restaurant owner. A widower. That last word still felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else. Leia had just turned 6. Megan, my wife, had died 9 months earlier after a fast, brutal illness. Hospital lights, sterile silence, a goodbye that doesn't feel real until you're standing in the cereal aisle, alone, trying to remember which brand she always bought. After Megan died, the world split into 2 groups, the people who showed up and the people who talked about showing up. My parents were firmly in the second camp. They came to the funeral, sure, hugging me like I was some distant relative they vaguely remembered. My mom, ever so helpfully, said, "You'll be fine. You're strong." As if strength was some magical replacement for actual support. After that, they mostly just returned to their lives. Their dinners, their golf, their church friends, their brunches with important people. But when it came to money, oh, they knew how to show up for that. I'd been helping my parents financially for 3 years, ever since my restaurant finally took off. Not because I owed them, not because they were destitute, but because every time I tried to say no, they'd find a way to make me feel like the worst son on the planet. It started small, a $1,200 loan for a forgotten property tax bill, a $900 car repair. Then it became a predictable monthly ritual. My dad would call with that infuriatingly casual tone. "Hey, Kev, quick question. You still got that automatic transfer set up? The one that helps us with the mortgage?" The mortgage on the house they insisted they couldn't downsize from, despite it being just the two of them and a guest room overflowing with dusty and used furniture. By the time Megan got sick, I was sending them $700 a week. We told ourselves it was temporary. We told ourselves they'd pay it back. We told ourselves family helped family. The problem was the helping only ever went one direction. When Megan was in the hospital, my parents didn't offer to pick up Leia from preschool. They didn't bring food. They didn't offer to sit with Leia so I could catch an hour of sleep. But my dad did text me once. Don't forget the transfer on Friday. Bank fees are ridiculous. I remember looking at Megan, her eyes closed, her hand cold in mine, and feeling something heavy and chilling settle deep behind my ribs. Not anger yet, more like a long, slow, devastating understanding. They weren't my safety net. I was theirs. When Megan died, I became a single dad, with a restaurant to run and a child who woke up screaming for her mom. I kept the transfers going anyway, because I was exhausted. Because I didn't have the emotional energy to fight every battle at once. Because some stupid, naive part of me kept thinking, if I just keep being steady, maybe they'll soften. That winter, I paid for their new water heater, their HOA special assessment, even a medical bill that turned out to be my mom's cosmetic dental work. And every time, they'd say, "We really appreciate you, Kev." Then they'd forget Leia's birthday, her school play, to ask how she was sleeping. But they never, ever forgot Friday. The weeks leading up to Leia's birthday, I planned like the party was a life raft. It sounds dramatic, but if you've ever tried to conjure joy for a child who's grieving, you know it's not just a party. It's proof that life still has color. Leia wanted a rainbow unicorn theme. Unicorns are magic animals that don't leave, she'd said. So I went all in. I ordered a unicorn cake from the bakery that supplies my restaurant, asked them to make the main extra bright. I taped a paper rainbow across the living room wall, each stripe cut painstakingly by hand after Leia was asleep. I bought a little plastic crown that said "Birthday Girl" in glitter letters. I even mailed invitations the old-fashioned way, with stickers, because Leia loved stamping the envelopes like she was sending secret mail. 2 weeks before the party, I called my parents. "Leia's party is Saturday at 2, I told them. "She's so excited. She asks about you every day." My mom laughed, like I was being adorably naive. "Oh, honey, of course we'll be there." My dad added, "Put us down as yes." I hesitated, then pressed them. "Please promise me." My dad sighed, making me feel needy. "Yes, Kevin, we'll be there." So every day when Leia asked, I said yes because I believed promises still meant something to them. Or maybe I just needed to believe that for her. The morning of the party, Leia woke up early, her hair sticking up, eyes bright. "Is today the party?" she whispered, as if speaking too loudly would make it disappear. "Yes," I said. "And Grandpa and Grandma are coming." She hugged my waist so tight my back cracked. "Good," she said, pulling away. "Because I made him something." She ran to the kitchen table and brought me a card. Construction paper, uneven edges, marker scribbles. Inside was a drawing of our stick figure family, me, Leia, and a third figure with yellow hair and a huge smile. "Is that Grandpa?" I asked. She nodded. "I made him tall," she said, "so he can reach stuff for me." I had to turn away for a second, pretending to look for tape. My eyes stung. My chest felt like a door was slowly closing. I wasn't just planning a party. I was trying to build my daughter a small village in the middle of an empty, lonely field. When my dad's text came later, I didn't answer. I just stared at it until the words blurred. Then I looked at Leia. She was lining up paper plates, whispering to herself. One for Nora, one for Teddy, one for Grandpa. She'd counted Grandpa's plate twice, like if she counted enough, he would magically appear. Nora showed up first, balloons in one hand, her smile fading when she saw my face. "What happened?" she asked quietly. I showed her the text. Her mouth tightened into a hard line. "Kevin," she said, "I'm so sorry." I didn't want sympathy. I wanted my parents to not be the kind of people who did this. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. "We're going to have a good party," I said. "No matter what." Nora nodded, immediately going into action mode, stringing up streamers, arranging snacks, keeping Leia busy so she wouldn't stare out the front window. But kids always know. At 2:10, Leia stood on tiptoe by the curtains. "Maybe they're stuck in traffic," she whispered. At 2:30, she asked, "Did Grandpa forget?" At 2:45, she stopped asking. She just sat on the floor with her crown tilted sideways, quietly pulling the ribbon off a party favor. That was the moment that broke me. Not the text, not the brunch photos. My daughter, 6 years old, sitting in a room full of unicorn decorations, looking smaller than she should have. After we sang and she blew out the candles, she made a wish so intense her little eyebrows pulled together. I knew what she wished for. When it was time for gifts, she opened them politely, hugged people, said her thank yous. But every time the front door made a sound, her head snapped up. My restaurant cooks even came by, dropping off a gift bag with a stuffed unicorn and a note that said, "Chef Kevin, we love you and Leia." She smiled at that for a second. Then she asked Nora, "Do you think Grandpa is coming later? Maybe for cake?" Nora looked at me, her eyes shiny. I nodded, a small, tight nod. "We'll see," Nora said gently. And then, as if the universe wanted to be extra cruel, my mom posted another photo. This time, it was the two of them clinking glasses. Caption: "When you know the right people, doors open." Something inside me went cold. I walked into the hallway, away from the kids, and I did the one thing that felt like I could still protect my daughter. I took a picture. Not of her crying. She didn't cry. She'd learned not to cry in front of people, which was its own heartbreak. It was a photo of Leia sitting on the carpet, her crown askew, holding Grandpa's card in her lap like it was fragile. Her eyes were down. Her mouth was a straight line. A disappointed face framed by rainbow streamers. I texted it to my parents. No caption at first, just the photo. Then, after a long breath, I typed, "Last time you break her heart." My thumb hovered over send. I pressed it anyway. They didn't respond. Not that day, not the next. Leia asked about them once the following morning while we ate pancakes. "Did Grandpa see my card?" she asked. I said, "Not yet." She nodded, like she was absorbing a fact about the weather. Then she got up, walked to the fridge, and taped the card there herself with a magnet. "So, he can see it later," she said. That card stayed on the fridge for weeks. The corners curled. The marker faded a little. My parents still didn't call. But the Friday transfer went through, like always, because I hadn't stopped it yet. Because part of me still lived in the old pattern. Keep things stable. Keep them happy. Keep the peace. Maybe they'll be nicer. That Friday night, after I put Leia to bed, I opened my banking app and stared at the outgoing transfer. $700. A weekly payment to people who couldn't make time for their granddaughter's first birthday after her mom died. Disgust rose in my throat, sharp and bitter. And I thought of Megan. I remembered her last week, how she had whispered to me, "Don't let them use you, Kev." At the time, I just nodded because she was dying and I didn't want to argue about my parents with her in a hospital room. But now, alone in my kitchen, I heard her voice, clear as a bell, like she was sitting across from me. "Don't let them use you." I stared at the screen until my hand stopped shaking enough to tap. Not a dramatic move, not revenge, just a clean, quiet decision. I turned off the automatic transfer. The app asked, "Are you sure?" I clicked yes. Then I went one step further. My parents' mortgage payment was linked to my business line of credit because my dad had accidentally missed 2 payments 2 years earlier and begged me to help, just temporarily. I'd been paying it ever since, pretending it was a short-term thing. I called the bank the next morning. "I need to remove my account from any automatic payments connected to my parents," I said. The woman on the phone asked for verification, asked if I understood this would cause missed payments. "Yes," I said calmly. "I understand." She emailed me confirmation forms. I signed them digitally. Then I opened this shared house projects account my dad had talked me into co-managing when they wanted to redo their kitchen. There was about $18,000 sitting in it, money I'd put in over time. I transferred my portion out into my business savings. Not stolen, not hidden. Just no longer available for them to spend like it was theirs by default. When I finished, the account balance looked different. It looked like reality. I stared at the confirmation screen, feeling something like grief, but cleaner. And I whispered to no one, "Okay." The fallout started within hours. My dad called first, 3 times. Then a voicemail. His tone was casual at the start, like he was calling about the weather. "Hey, Kev. The transfer didn't come through. Probably a bank glitch. Give me a call." Then another voicemail, less casual. "Kevin, we need to know what's going on. We have things scheduled." My mom texted, like she was starting a conversation about brunch. "Mom, sweetheart, did you change something with the payments? Your father is worried." Then finally, my dad's real voice came out. He called again and left a voicemail that wasn't pretending anymore. "Kevin, this is not the time to play games. We have obligations. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you can't just pull support. We're your parents." There it was. Not "we're sorry we missed the party." Not "how is Leia doing?" Not even "we feel terrible." Just "you can't pull support," like I was a utility company. Like my role was to keep their lights on while they conveniently forgot my daughter existed. I didn't answer. Not because I was being dramatic. Because if I answered, I knew I'd get dragged back into the old dance. Guilt, excuses, promises, nothing changing. Instead, I texted one message. "I won't fund a family my daughter isn't part of." That was it. Short, clear. Then I put my phone face down and went to work. 2 weeks passed. My parents didn't ask about Leia. They didn't mention brunch. They didn't apologize. They did, however, send me a spreadsheet. A literal spreadsheet. My dad emailed it with a subject line, "House expenses you're responsible for." I opened it in the back office of my restaurant, between inventory counts and payroll. It was a list of things they believed I should pay: mortgage, utilities, holiday hosting fund, country club dues, my mom's health supplements. At the bottom, bolded, it said, "Total weekly support needed, $900. I laughed once. A sharp, humorless sound. Then I closed my laptop. That night, Leia crawled into my bed, clutching her bunny. "Daddy," she whispered. "I miss Mommy." I held her until she fell asleep. Then I lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking of my dad's spreadsheet. And I knew something important. They weren't just careless. They were entitled. They had replaced love with invoices. Christmas came faster than I wanted it to. Leia's first Christmas without her mom. I tried to make it gentle. We put Megan's favorite ornament on the tree first, a tiny glass star. Leia held it carefully, like it might break if she breathed wrong. We baked cookies and left 3 out on a plate. "One for Santa," Leia said. "And one for Mommy." I swallowed hard and said, "Okay." We even went to my restaurant on Christmas Eve afternoon just to say hi to the staff and drop off little gift cards. My team adored Leia. They treated her like she was precious, not an inconvenience. My sous chef, Marco, bent down to her level and said, "You excited for Christmas, Princessa?" Leia nodded. Then she hesitated and asked, "Do you think Grandpa will come to Christmas?" My chest tightened. I didn't lie this time. "I don't know," I said softly. "But you and me, we're going to have a good Christmas no matter what." She looked at me for a long second, like she was deciding whether to believe me. Then she nodded once. "Okay," she said. "Can we make hot chocolate?" "We can make a whole lake of hot chocolate," I said, and she smiled. Christmas morning, we stayed home. Just us. Pajamas, cinnamon rolls, a quiet kind of joy. I thought maybe my parents would leave us alone. I was wrong. At 3:17 p.m., while Leia was on the floor building a Lego unicorn stable, there was a knock. Not a friendly knock. A firm, familiar knock, like they owned the door. I opened it. And there they were. My mom in her winter coat, holding a gift bag. My dad standing behind her, his jaw tight. And both of them wore the same expression. Not apology. Not regret. Expectation. My mom stepped forward like nothing had happened. "We decided to stop by," she said, "because families shouldn't stay mad." My dad looked past me into my living room. "Where's Leia?" he asked, like he was checking a box. Leia peeked around the corner, Bunny tucked under her arm. Her face lit up for half a second. That automatic kid hope. "Grandpa," she said. Then she glanced at my face, and the light dimmed. She was learning to read rooms. My mom held out the gift bag. "Come here, sweetheart," she said in a sugary voice. Leia took 2 small steps forward. She didn't run. She didn't fling herself at them. She just stood there, cautious, like a kid approaching a dog that had bitten her once. I watched my dad's eyes flick to the tree, then to the wrapped gifts. "Kevin," he said low, "we should talk." My mom sighed dramatically. "You've made this very difficult," she said. "We've been embarrassed. People are asking questions." There it was again. Not, "We hurt Leia," not, "We missed something important," just embarrassment. My daughter stood between us, clutching her bunny, and I realized this was the exact crossroads moment. If I let them in, they'd learn nothing. They'd do a quick visit, take photos for Facebook, and walk away feeling like they had fixed it, while still expecting money next week. If I didn't let them in, they'd punish me with guilt and anger. But my job wasn't to protect their feelings. My job was to protect my kid. I knelt down next to Leia and spoke gently. "Sweetie," I said, "can you go pick your favorite new ornament and bring it here?" She hesitated. Nora had taught her a quiet code word after Megan died. If Dad asks you to do something weird, it means he needs a minute. Leia nodded and walked to the tree, her small hand steady. I stood up and looked at my parents. "We're not doing surprise visits," I said calmly. My mom's smile wobbled. "We brought gifts," she said like that was a magic key. My dad's voice sharpened. "Kevin, don't do this on Christmas." "Then you shouldn't have done it on her birthday," I said. My mom's eyes narrowed. "Oh, come on," she snapped. "It was brunch. We had commitments." "Your granddaughter had a commitment too," I said. She was turning 6. It was her first birthday without her mom. My dad exhaled, like I was exhausting. "You're making everything about grief," he said. "Life moves on." I felt something go very still inside me. Leia came back, holding the glass star ornament. Megan's ornament. She held it like a tiny offering. "I wanted to show Grandpa," she said quietly. My dad barely glanced at it. My mom reached toward it. "That's nice," she said. "Too fast, too fake. Let's take a picture." Leia's fingers tightened around the ornament. She pulled it slightly back toward her chest. And that was it. My daughter didn't even know she was drawing a boundary, but she was. I looked at my parents and spoke like I was telling them the restaurant was closed. "You don't get photos," I said. "Not today. Not like this." My mom's face hardened. "So, you're punishing us," she said. "No," I said. "I'm protecting her." My dad stepped forward, anger finally leaking out. "You cut us off," he said. "You humiliated us. And now you're acting like we're monsters." I kept my voice even. "I stopped paying for you," I said. "That's not humiliation. That's reality." My mom scoffed. "We raised you," she snapped. "We sacrificed. You raised me," I said. "And now I'm raising her alone. That's what you're ignoring." My dad's jaw clenched. "So what? We're not welcome in your house now?" he demanded. I nodded once. "Not unannounced," I said. "Not without an apology. Not without actually showing up for her in a way that isn't performative." My mom huffed. "What apology?" "For missing a party," she said, incredulous. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue in circles. I just held their gaze and said the simplest truth. "For making her feel like she didn't matter," I said. "And for making me lie to her." My dad looked away first. My mom's eyes flashed. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "You're turning her against us." I glanced down at Leia. She was standing very still, holding her mom's ornament, watching my parents like they were strangers. No anger, no drama, just distance. I opened the door wider, not to invite them in, but to make the exit obvious. "You need to leave," I said. My mom's mouth fell open. "Kevin, leave," I repeated, calm, firm. And don't show up again without calling first. My dad grabbed my mom's arm. Not gently. Fine, he said. Fine. But don't come crying to us when you need help. I didn't flinch. I needed help, I said quietly. You had brunch. My mom made a sound like she wanted the last word, but my dad pulled her down the steps. Leia didn't wave. She didn't run after them. She just stood there, holding that little glass star like it was the only thing in the world worth protecting. When the car backed out of the driveway, she finally exhaled. Daddy, she whispered. Did I do something wrong? I dropped to my knees in front of her so fast my joints hurt. No, I said. No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. She looked at the ornament, then at me. Okay, she said softly. Can we put Mommy's star back on the tree? Yes, I said. We can. We hung it together. Her hands were careful. Mine were shaking. That night, after she fell asleep, my phone lit up with texts. My mom, you embarrassed us. My dad, you're being dramatic. Then, finally, the one that made it clear nothing had changed. My dad. So, when are you reinstating the payments? I stared at it for a long time. Then, I typed one sentence. I'm not your backup bank. And I blocked both numbers. The next week was loud in a quiet way. They called from different numbers, left voicemails, sent emails. My aunt messaged me, your mom is heartbroken. A cousin wrote, it's Christmas, Kevin. Nobody wrote, how's Leia? So, I stopped checking. Instead, I did something small and symbolic. I took the card Leia had made for Grandpa, the one that had been taped to my fridge, edges curled, and I framed it. A cheap black frame from the craft store, nothing fancy. Then I hung it in the hallway, right where we walk past every morning. Leia noticed immediately. You put my card in a picture frame? She said, her voice full of wonder. Yes, I said. Because it matters. She stared at it for a second, like she couldn't fully process that a grown-up would treat her work like treasure. Then she smiled. A real one. Okay, she said. I'm going to make more. On New Year's Eve, my restaurant was closed. Staff had the night off, but I unlocked the front door anyway. I set up a small table near the window with paper snowflakes and hot chocolate and a bowl of marshmallows. Nora came over. Marco and his wife stopped by for an hour. My dishwasher, Louise, even brought his teenage daughter, who taught Leia how to fold napkins into little swans. It wasn't a big party. It wasn't fancy. But it was warm. At 11:59, we counted down. Leia wore her purple pajamas and held a plastic cup of sparkling cider, like it was the most important thing she'd ever done. When we hit midnight, she laughed. Not the polite laugh she used around my parents. A full-body laugh that made her shoulders lift and her eyes squint with pure joy. I looked around my restaurant, this place built with my hands and long nights, and I felt something settle. This was our family now. Not blood, not tradition, not obligation. Just people who showed up. Later, after everyone left, I swept the floor and turned off the lights. Leia tugged my sleeve. Daddy, she said sleepily. Are we still a family if Grandpa doesn't come? I knelt down and brushed her hair back. We're a family, I said. Because we love each other. She nodded like that made perfect sense. Then she pointed up at the framed card in the hallway near the office door. Can we put one for Mommy, too? She asked. My throat tightened. Yes, I said. We can. The next day, we printed a photo of Megan. One where she was laughing, eyes bright, holding Leia on her hip. We framed it. We hung it next to Leia's card. 2 frames, side by side. One for the love we lost. One for the love we protected. And the chairs my parents would have sat in? They stayed empty. Not as revenge. As a simple, quiet truth. They didn't belong in the life I was building anymore. Not if my daughter had to keep asking, is Grandpa coming? Not if the answer kept breaking her. So I made sure she didn't have to ask. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family to protect someone you love? I really want to know your stories in the comments below.